My name is Selene Marlowe, and for 14 years I have worked with love and care at Blue Ridge Animal Clinic in Asheville, North Carolina. I am 42 years old, and I know almost every animal that comes through our doors. I can recognize dogs just by their bark and cats by the way they move or where they like to be scratched. To many people, this is just a clinic, but to me it is much more than that. This clinic feels like my home. It is a place full of memories, hard work, and love. I built my life around it because of a promise I made when I was only 16 years old. That was the year my father became very sick. He had cancer, and I watched him slowly get weaker in a hospital bed. It was one of the hardest times of my life. My father was a carpenter. He used his hands to build houses, strong and safe places where families could live. His hands were always rough from work, but they were also gentle when he talked to me. He used to tell me that caring for others is like building something that lasts forever. Even when he was very sick, he still believed in that. When he passed away, I felt lost. But I also remembered his words. I decided that I wanted to help others too. I chose to become a veterinarian so I could take care of animals, because animals cannot speak and tell us when they are in pain. I wanted to be their voice and help them feel better. Years later, I found myself sitting in a conference room at the clinic. The room still smelled like old wood from the desk that used to belong to Dr. Thaddeus Wren, the man who had once owned the clinic before he retired. Across from me sat Alaric Vaughn, a manager from a big company called Pinnacle Veterinary Group. Alaric looked very different from us. He wore a very expensive suit, and he had a tablet in his hands. On that tablet were charts and numbers that I did not fully understand, but I knew they were important to him. "Selene," he said, tapping on the screen, "your clinic is not making enough profit." His voice was calm and smooth, almost like he had practiced what he was going to say. "We need to cut costs," he continued, "starting with salaries. Your pay will now be 60% of what you currently earn." He smiled politely, but it did not feel kind. It felt cold. "It's nothing personal," he added. "It's just business." For a moment, I could not speak. My heart was beating very fast, and I felt like everything around me had stopped. 14 years. That is how long I had worked here. 14 years of helping animals in the middle of the night, stitching wounds, comforting worried pet owners, and writing sympathy cards when someone lost their beloved pet. I had seen tiny puppies grow into old dogs and scared kittens turn into loving cats. And now, all of that was being turned into numbers on a screen. My mind quickly went to my mother. She is very sick, and her medical bills are expensive. I live in a small apartment, and I try to save money wherever I can. I even drive an old car, so I can afford her treatment. Every paycheck I earn helps me take care of her. This pay cut was not just about me. It would affect her too. It could take away the safety I had worked so hard to build. "I understand," I said quietly, trying to stay calm even though I felt shaken inside. "When will this start?" "Next pay cycle," Alaric replied, already looking back at his tablet. "We need your decision by Friday." I nodded slowly and stood up. As I walked out of the room, my scrubs suddenly felt tight, like I could not breathe properly. When I reached the waiting room, I saw familiar faces. There was Mrs. Marrett with her nervous dog, and a young child holding a small hamster carefully in their hands. These people trusted us. They came here because they believed we would take good care of their pets. This clinic was not just important to me. It was important to them too. As I walked past the front desk, I saw Zephyra Calloway, our receptionist. She has worked here for 10 years. She is a single mother, and she works very hard to support her son. Her desk is covered with his soccer trophies, which always makes her smile. She looked at me with worried eyes. "You heard too?" she asked softly. I nodded. "They cut my pay by 30%, she said. "And they are also cutting my hours." "They cut mine by 40%, I replied, feeling the words heavy in my mouth. "What are you going to do?" Zephyra looked around the waiting room. There was an older man with his dog and a young couple holding a small kitten. "I don't know," she said quietly. "This place, it feels like family. But it's not going to be the same anymore." Her words made my chest feel heavy. When I first came to this clinic, it was not like it is now. It was small and old, with broken lights and very little space. I had just finished vet school, and I was still hurting from losing my father. Dr. Thaddeus Wren gave me a chance when no one else did. I promised myself that I would work hard and make this place better. Over the years, I trained new staff, helped expand the clinic, and turned it into a place where people felt safe bringing their pets. At home, my apartment walls are covered with thank you notes and drawings from children. Many of them drew pictures of their pets and wrote kind messages to me. Those little things remind me why I do this job. But life is not easy. My mother's health is getting worse, and her medical bills keep growing. Every paycheck I earn goes toward helping her. Without that money, I do not know how I would manage. This situation was not just about losing money. It felt like everything I had built was in danger. I went back to my office and sat down. The smell of medicine in the air helped me feel a little calmer. I looked at a photo on my desk. It was a picture of me and my father at a fair. We were both smiling and laughing. I could almost hear his voice again. Build something that matters, Selene. I took a deep breath. I was not going to let anyone take that away from me. Later, I went back to check on Zephyra. Are you okay? I asked gently. Not really, she said. They are cutting everyone, aren't they? This place used to feel like home. Yes, I said. But we are not just numbers to our clients. I thought about all the people who trusted us. People who drove long distances just to bring their pets here. People who called in the middle of the night because they knew I would answer. This clinic was built on trust and care. At lunch, I sat with Evander Kian, a younger vet who had joined us recently. He had worked in a big corporate clinic before. You've seen this kind of thing before, right? I asked him. He nodded. Yes, he said. First, they cut costs. Then they make you see more patients in less time. Then they push you to sell extra services. And what happens to the care? I asked. It becomes all about numbers, he said. I left my last job because they wanted me to suggest treatments that were not always necessary. That made me feel uncomfortable. I thought about my patients and how much they trusted me. Later that day, I called Dr. Thaddeus. He sounded sad when he heard what was happening. I didn't know they would do this, he said. It's not your fault, I told him. But I've been thinking. I might start my own clinic. There was a short silence. I think you should, he said finally. You have the heart for it. His words gave me courage. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. My apartment felt like a place where big decisions were being made. I started looking at different places where I could open a clinic. I checked prices, loans, and equipment. It was scary. Starting something new always is. It meant taking risks and leaving behind the place I had known for so long. But it also felt right. I realized that I was not just trying to save my job. I was trying to protect something much bigger. The trust of all the people who believed in me and the care I gave to their pets. By Friday morning, I felt different. I felt strong and sure. I had spent many nights thinking and planning. The numbers were still scary, but staying in a place where I could not do my job the right way felt worse. I stood outside Alaric's office holding my resignation letter. My heart was beating fast, but I knew what I had to do. Come in, he said from inside. I walked in and handed him the letter. My 2 weeks' notice, I said. He looked surprised. You're leaving because of a pay change, he asked. It's not just about the money, I said calmly. I want to do something new. He leaned back in his chair and looked at me carefully, like I was just another number on his chart. But I knew the truth. I was not just a number. I was someone who had built something with love, care, and purpose. And now I was ready to build something new. I was getting ready to leave and join another place, but I did not tell everyone clearly. I tried to keep things quiet and simple. I had learned that Pinnacle had rules in their contracts that tried to stop people from taking clients with them. But my lawyer friend told me those rules might not really work in North Carolina, so I felt a little bit safer. Still, I was careful. Even though I tried to stay quiet, by lunchtime the news had already spread everywhere, just like fire spreading in dry grass. Zephyra came up to me near the filing cabinets. She looked nervous but also excited. Is it true? She asked in a soft voice. Her eyes were big, full of hope and a little fear too. Yes, I said. Then I decided to trust her and tell her more. I'm opening my own clinic on Laurel Creek. It will be small, but it will be mine. Her face lit up with happiness. She smiled wide and said, That's incredible, Selene. Later that day, Evander pulled me aside between appointments. He looked serious but also excited. I'm in, he said in a strong voice. Whatever you're planning, I want to help. That night, Isolde, who was our head technician, sent me a message. She wrote, Count me in. Every time someone supported me, it felt like I was building something strong, like adding bricks one by one to make a house. I was not just building a clinic. I was building a place where animals would be cared for with love, not just treated like numbers. As I drove home, I remembered my mom's words in my head. You are your father's daughter, Selene. Build something real. Those words stayed with me and made me feel brave. The next week, I moved very carefully, almost like a spy in my own life. I had already signed a lease for a small building on Laurel Creek Drive. It used to be a children's doctor's office, so it already had exam rooms and pipes set up. There was also a waiting area that just needed some bright decorations and pictures of pets to make it feel warm and happy. My bank, the same one where I had opened my account when I got my first job as a vet, agreed to give me a loan. That helped a lot. Also, suppliers I had known for years offered me good deals on equipment. One of them even said, "We don't like what Pinnacle is doing to clinics. We believe in you, Selene." That made me feel even stronger. At Blue Ridge, I kept my plans a secret. There were cameras and microphones everywhere. Alaric was always walking around with his clipboard, watching everything. It felt like I could not say anything without being heard. Even small words felt dangerous. But somehow, the clients could feel that something was changing. During one checkup, Mrs. Orlane leaned closer to me and whispered, "Where are you going, Dr. Marlowe? Max won't see anyone else." I smiled a little and said carefully, "Nothing is set yet, because I knew the computer might be recording our voices." She smiled back and winked. "Well, you let me know when it is." Moments like that made me feel strong inside. I was not just leaving the clinic. I was taking trust with me. People believed in me, and that meant everything. At home, my kitchen table turned into my workspace. Papers were everywhere, plans, budgets, lists, and dreams. I worked late into the night, writing everything down. One night, my mom watched me quietly. She looked weak but still strong inside. "You're scared, aren't you?" she asked gently. I looked at her and said, "Yes. I'm really scared." My voice shook a little. "But I can't let Pinnacle turn our clinic into a factory. Dad would not want that." She reached out and held my hand. Her grip was soft but warm. "He would be proud of you," she said. "You are building something for all of us." Her words made my heart feel full. One day at work, Isolde stopped me and said, "I heard about Laurel Creek. I'm ready whenever you are." Evander also nodded and agreed. Their support made me feel protected, like I was wearing strong armor. I was not alone anymore. Every step I took, signing papers, ordering tools, making plans, felt like a promise. A promise to my team, to my patients, and to the little girl I used to be, who dreamed of helping animals. I thought to myself, Pinnacle can keep their numbers and money. I am building a home. But Pinnacle started becoming stricter and more controlling. 1 week before my last day, they put up a new price list in the break room. I looked at it and felt shocked. Vaccinations had gone up from $45 to $65. Dental cleanings were now $425. They also started pushing extra tests that pets did not really need, like expensive blood tests for healthy young animals. I stood there staring at the board, my coffee getting cold in my hand. This was not about helping animals anymore. It felt like they were taking advantage of families who trusted us. One day, Mrs. Bryony came in with her old cat, Socks. Socks had arthritis and needed gentle care. According to Pinnacle's new rules, she needed a $500 test, even though she had just had tests done 2 months ago. Mrs. Bryony held her purse tightly and looked worried. "Is this really necessary?" she asked me softly. I paused and thought carefully. I knew Alaric was watching. "The new rules say yes," I said slowly. "But in my opinion, Socks can wait 4 months." Her face relaxed with relief. But suddenly, Alaric walked into the room with a big smile. He started talking quickly about how important the test was, and even offered a small discount. In the end, Mrs. Bryony agreed to do the test, even though she looked sad and worried about the money. After she left, Alaric turned to me and said, "You need to follow our rules. You are too attached to your clients." I felt angry but kept my voice calm. "It's not an attachment," I said. "It's trust. That's why people come here." He looked at his watch and said coldly, "1 more week and we won't need your way anymore." That night, something even worse happened. I checked the patient files and saw that my patients were being reassigned to another doctor. One by one, they were being taken away from me. I felt heartbroken. I lay awake that night, thinking about everything: my mom's health, the bills, my dad's memory. I knew I could not wait any longer. I had to open my clinic as soon as possible. At 2 a.m., I sent an email to my lawyer, Marceline. "Can we open in 2 weeks, even if it's not perfect?" I wrote. She replied early in the morning, "Yes. Call me." I hardly slept after that. My mind was full of plans and worries. The clinic was almost ready, but 2 weeks was very fast. Still, I had no choice. I had to do it. At work, clients kept asking me where I was going. "Where are you going, Dr. Marlowe?" they would say. I smiled and avoided answering because I knew we were being watched and recorded. But their love and loyalty gave me strength. One day, Zephyr gave me a small note. It had the names of 20 clients who had asked about me. At the bottom, she wrote, "When you need a receptionist, I'm ready." That made me smile. I met Evander and Isolde at a small diner far away from the clinic, so we could talk safely. Over coffee, I told them my plan. Laurel Creek Animal Hospital will open in 2 weeks, I said. I need people who care about animals, not money. Evander smiled and said, I'm in. Isolde nodded and said, me too. Their support made me feel strong, but I was still scared. I worried about money, about my mom, and about failing. But as I drove home that night and saw the lights of the city shining, I felt something powerful inside me. This was not just about opening a clinic. It was about doing what is right. It was about keeping trust. It was about helping animals and the people who love them. It was a promise to my patients, to my team, to my family, and to the little girl I once was who dreamed of making a difference in the world. My last day at Blue Ridge started very quietly, like the calm before a storm. Everything felt slow and still, but inside my heart, I knew something big was about to happen. That morning, I stayed very busy. I called suppliers, checked on equipment rentals, and made sure everything was ready for Laurel Creek to open soon. There was so much to do, and I wanted to get every detail right. When I parked in my usual spot for the last time, I sat there for a moment and looked around. This place had been a big part of my life. I felt like my dad was with me, even though he wasn't there. I could almost hear his voice saying, "Build it strong, Selene." That gave me courage. I took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked inside, ready to finish this chapter of my life. The morning felt heavy because I had to say goodbye to so many people. Zephyr came up to me and gave me a big, warm hug. Her eyes were a little watery, like she might cry. "You're doing the right thing," she whispered softly. Her words made me feel stronger, but also a little sad. Even the newer staff, who didn't know me very well, could feel that something important was happening. They gave me small smiles and quiet nods. I didn't have many appointments that day. Most of my schedule was filled with paperwork and tasks to help with the transition. It felt strange not to be busy with patients, but instead sitting and doing forms and planning. I kept reminding myself that this was part of moving forward. At noon, Alaric called me into the conference room. I thought it would just be a simple meeting to sign some papers. But when I walked in, I saw Alaric, a lawyer named Miss Hargrove, and an HR director sitting there. Their faces looked serious, and the room felt tense. "We have concerns, Dr. Marlowe," Alaric said in a firm voice. "We believe you are planning to open another clinic, and that breaks your contract." The lawyer slowly pushed a paper across the table toward me. It said I would not be allowed to work within 20 miles for a whole year. I stayed calm and did not panic. "I never signed a non-compete," I said, opening my bag and taking out my file. My lawyer checked everything carefully. "The law here doesn't allow this, especially if it affects patient care." Alaric's face tightened, and he looked unhappy. The lawyer glanced at the HR director, who looked a bit uncomfortable and unsure. "We're not here to argue about the law," Alaric said. "We just want things to go smoothly for our clients." "My clients," I said gently but clearly. "And I agree. Their care is the most important thing." The HR director tried to make peace between us. We talked for almost 2 hours, going back and forth. In the end, we made a deal. I agreed not to contact clients for 30 days, and they agreed to drop their restrictions on me. It wasn't perfect, but it was fair. When the meeting ended, I turned in my keys and packed my things. As I walked out of the building, my heart was beating fast. I felt nervous, but also strong and free. It was the end of something, but also the beginning of something new. As I drove away, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Zephyr. "Alaric told the corporation you're just one vet. He has no idea." I smiled when I read that. I held the steering wheel tightly and looked ahead. Laurel Creek was ready, and so was I. Just 17 days after I left Blue Ridge, Laurel Creek Animal Hospital opened. Those days were very busy and tiring. We worked day and night to get everything ready. We used simple exam tables and borrowed tools because we didn't have everything yet. Evander is sold, and I worked very long hours without much rest. Zephyr joined us at the end and helped set up the front desk. She had also left Blue Ridge because she didn't like the way things were there. We planned a soft opening with only a few urgent cases. We thought it would be a quiet start. But at 8:45 in the morning, I looked out the window and was completely surprised. There was a long line of people and pets waiting outside. The line stretched across the parking lot. I saw familiar faces. Mrs. Orlane with Max, the Torres family with Methuselah, and many other families I had known and cared for over the years. Did you call all these people? Evander asked, looking shocked. Just a few, I said, my voice a little shaky because I was so surprised. Zephyra smiled from behind the front desk. News spreads fast in Asheville, she said happily. People kept coming in, one after another. Many of them said the same thing. They came because of me, not because of a company name. Mrs. Bryony even brought socks, cookies, and a sweet card. I saw it on Facebook, she said with a smile. I didn't want to miss this. By lunchtime, we had already registered 70 pets. By the end of the day, it was more than 150. Children gave me drawings, and families brought pizza for all of us. Every kind act made me feel warm inside. It showed me that people truly cared. That night, I got a message from someone at Blue Ridge. There's an emergency meeting. The schedule is empty. I laughed when I read it. I was very tired, but I also felt happy and alive. Within 1 month, Laurel Creek had 800 pets. About 70% of Blue Ridge's clients came to us. People talked about us everywhere, and even a local newspaper wrote a story about the clinic. One client said, "Everyone is talking about you. They know you stood up for what's right." Hearing that made me proud. 3 months later, Thaddeus Wren came to visit. He walked around the clinic, looking at everything with bright, happy eyes. "You built something real, Selene," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I should have sold it to you." I hugged him tightly, feeling thankful and a little emotional too. Later, I received an email from Alaric. He wanted to meet and talk about the veterinary situation in the city. I wrote back, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Nothing personal, just business. As I stood in Laurel Creek, surrounded by wagging tails and purring animals, I felt peaceful and proud. I knew my dad would be proud of me too. This wasn't about getting back at anyone. This was about building something good and true. To everyone who followed this journey, thank you. You stayed with me through the hard times, the fear, and the happy moments. You saw me stand strong for the animals and families I care about, and for the promise I made to my father.